Today's episode, we will discuss the one powerful ingredient your martial arts schools can't afford to ignore. Welcome to Black Belt Banter, the best podcast to help your martial arts school increase in profits and generate substantial revenue. I'm Jimmy Hong, and my co host is Master Chan Lee. Master Chan has over 2,100 active students with multiple locations. He is well renowned and highly respected by his fellow peers for his business acumen in operating martial arts schools. Master Chan Lee, welcome to the podcast. Before we start, I know you're excited about this subject. We were talking about it on our pre-production meeting. Your heart is really in this topic, and I know you can't wait to share. But I want to I want to say, have you been getting a lot of feedback from the fellow community about the launch of our podcast? Because I've been getting emails, messages. I've been getting, oh my, so many positive support about how much they're just enjoying our show. What about you, Master Chan?
Yeah, the feedback's been incredible. And the reason you can see our faces is that been by the feedback of everybody that came back and said it'd be nice to see who we are. But I'm going to assume our viewership and listenership will drop huge after, they're seeing our live faces. So
100%. This is a one-off. We're going to do this, and then everybody's going to say, can we go back to just a podcast and no video only, sir?
right. We have faces for radio, as they say.
I get that all the time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the response has been absolutely great. Thank you. You and I are sons of grandmasters in Taekwondo. We love the martial arts, and we want to make sure we are doing whatever we can to help school owners across the country because the fact still remains less than 3% of the U.S. population does martial arts, and it just boggles my mind. And we really got to do a better job of being able to educate school owners on teaching what they're doing and helping people be their best through the martial arts and so forth. So that's really the genesis of what this podcast is about. So
And
what I
yeah,
really
and they've been just so the support and the compliments that we receive, it just reaffirms of why we're doing this because you and I talked about, okay, what is our end game here? What is our goal of launching a podcast? Is exactly this, is to connect in a consistent way with our listeners, with the fellow martial arts school owners within the industry that we are already on. But this is a great relevant way for us to stay connected, build a rapport, and just build an audience with our supportive listeners.
absolutely. And we've met, and I know I've met a lot of school owners and fellow martial art teachers through the tournaments. Also met a lot of you through other martial art events throughout the country and so forth. And after we do these events, we're not really connected or not hearing what exactly is going on in our industry. And I thought this would be a good way. And then I still have the few phone calls I make to the people that I really respect and get feedback from. But even then, you feel like you're not getting the whole story because everybody's busy and so forth. So I thought this would be a good way for us to connect with our audience and let everybody know what's going on and so forth. So
Absolutely. And speaking of that, let's dive into this next topic that you're passionate about. What is this topic? What is this thing that you're just so passionate about, Master Chan?
well, I think there's something that a lot of people don't discuss about the martial art industry. I grew up in a Taekwondo school. My father was a grandmaster in Taekwondo. Typical story. We came as immigrants that didn't have a lot of money. Our first martial arts school was in the inner city, and not in the best neighborhood. And then later on, my father was able to save some money and then opened another location in the suburbs. And then that school just took off and everybody looks for business practices. I have a lot of experience as a person that grew up in a martial arts school and also was a student, a part-time instructor. I went off to college. I was away from it for a little bit. And then I came back full bore to do this and build our schools. And there's one thing that I think a lot of people are looking for is like, what's the magic sauce? What is like what's the business principles that you guys adhere to as you are running your martial arts school? And I think there's one really important component, and this is only from my perspective. So you don't have to agree with me. I'm just telling you what we're doing. is a culture of a martial arts school. What exactly is the culture of a martial arts school? And for us, we're a traditional based martial art program. So you won't see us wearing, shorts and a t-shirt in class. You have us wearing traditional martial art uniforms. We bow onto the mat. We say Korean terminology. That's where Taekwondo came from. And there's just a culture that's developed. And then there's some like general stuff. So let me give you an example. Like, what's the friendliness of your school? Let's start with that. Like when a new person comes in, how friendly is your staff and the people around them? And not only that, how welcoming are your students of the new student that comes in? And that's important. That's super important. Let me just give you an example. We had our sparring class, and by no means am I an MMA school, but I'm just doing regular Taekwondo sparring, right? Light contact. Everybody's having a good time, and they're doing it. And I had either a parent or a grandparent. I think it was a grandparent watching classes, and he was a younger grandparent, like late 50s. And I said, "Hey, you should start classes." And he was like, "I am completely intimidated by this," and so forth. But I knew from the grapevine that this guy was like former military, served overseas, has been in some dangerous situations. And I'm sitting there like, how can you be intimidated about coming into a Taekwondo class that's doing point sparring? And I use that as an example is that everybody has a little bit of a preconceived idea of what a martial arts school is like. And they're fearful of like getting hurt, being embarrassed, making sure that they want to be good at it. And if they're around other family members, they want to make sure that they're not being judged. These are all very, very important things. And just making sure everybody says hello. And one of the things I do is that I feel like if you walk onto my Taekwondo school, you are in a little piece of Korea. So I have all our staff bow to all the parents and all to the kids. Like, I'm not going to stand there with my black belt and waiting for me. I'm the black belt, so you bow to me. I'm the one that bows first. And I have a making sure everybody feels welcome. Hello, Pilsung. How you doing? Good to see you. Welcome to our academy. Everybody smiling and welcome. Good to see you. All right. Glad you made it to class. Just everybody has that really positive vibe. And sometimes we kind of get away from that and just making sure that we have that friendliness feeling. Let me tell you something that has stuck with me my whole life. I'm in my 20s. I am like, I, I want to buy a nice car, something to dream and aspire by. And I'll tell you, I walk into the Mercedes dealership and just, I wasn't going to buy anything, but I just wanted to take a look at it and just see it. And I was treated so poorly that I would never get a Mercedes ever. It just stuck with me. When we were able to afford a decent car, our first purchase was a Lexus. I it just stuck with me. I just can't stand to make matters worse. We got a Lexus, and then my mother-in-law needed a Lexus. She ended up buying one. I've given this guy like 12 cars. People from our church, oh, yeah, you got a Lexus, and who's your guy there? And I gave him the referral. I sold them so many cars just because I got a bad feeling from the Mercedes dealership right here in my town. And so I want to say to you, just make sure your school is just overly friendly and the people that you are there are overly friendly. And so that's the culture that I really want everybody to understand. That's the first thing.
Well, Master Chan, you gotta you have to put yourself. We sometimes we forget at school because we've been doing this day in day out for years and long time, but we forget to put ourselves into their shoes when they walk in first time, I don't know, first week, or they're visiting a friend. There's all this shouting, kiaping going on. There's instructors and masters just belting out instructions and lessons and motivating, and the environment is very loud and perceived as hostile. So from their point of view, they walk in, they're coming in from an outside street, they come in and all this noise is going on that they're not accustomed to. They're not accustomed to people shouting, even though it's within that martial arts culture. So to your point, it is very intimidating. They don't want to just go up and be like, oh, hey, my name is John Doe. I like to get some. It's very intimidating. And if your staff or you or your students don't approach them first, it's highly unlikely that they're gonna be the first to come up to somebody, be like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. So that's a very correct point right there, Master Chan.
Thank you. And I think it's sometimes we're comfortable with our environment, but we just don't know what outsiders think. And then that's a really great point. The other thing that I do, which is I think very important, is that I introduce the new student to the whole school. So right before we start classes, I go, "Hey, this is Joey. Hi, Joey. Welcome to our school. How old are you? You're 6. Okay, Joey. And Joey, and I do a little icebreaker. Joey, what is your favorite fruit? What is your favorite cereal? What is your favorite show that you watch on YouTube?" Right. We'll say, "Oh, what's your favorite food? Oh, pizza. Oh, who likes pizza here? Oh, great. Okay, well, he's new here today. Kids, make sure you help Joey out in class today and introduce yourself." So all throughout class, I just see who my leaders are, and other kids. They'll go, "Hi, my name is Fred. Nice to meet you." And I just want a super welcoming environment, and everybody is like talking to the new student and so forth. And everybody is really, really kind of keen on what's going on. The other thing I do too is as they're doing warm-ups and stretching, I'll introduce myself to the new parent, obviously, but then I'll have the other parents. I go, "Oh, this is Mrs. Jones. She's been here for 6 months. Ma'am, do you mind just telling them a little bit about our school and so forth?" They introduce them to our environment. So the parents also feel a little bit welcome in what's going on. And I think that's just critical because there's a lot of people that they're standoffish and so forth. My daughter plays lacrosse. She's a junior, and there's a bunch of freshman parents that, and the first game was just, I was just sitting there recording my daughter play and this and that. And there was no like cheering or chattering and so forth. So what I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to say hi to all the new freshman parents, and hey, my daughter's number 9, and then just get to know everybody. And then now I have a reference point on who I can cheer for. And now all the parents are cheering for each of the kids. I became a little bit of the culture keeper for the lacrosse team. And I think that's important also for your dojang, is just making sure it's a really friendly, nice, welcoming culture and so forth. You may also have to you have to monitor your culture. Like, I don't know, like Wisconsin's not a pro friendly CBD weed culture. Every now and then you meet a parent that just reeks of weed. They'll just come in and I'm like, what is going on? They toked up in the car, and I don't accept that. I'm like, "Hey, we have a lot of children here, and I believe that's not appropriate for you to do." And I want them to feel a little uncomfortable, and I want them to understand they shouldn't be doing that. We had an uncomfortable situation too where a parent reeked of alcohol, and the staff member clearly said, "Hey, do you have someone else driving today?" You know, and the parent kind of like took notice that we could smell the alcohol on them, and someone else came and drove them home. So I think it's a important piece that you are kind of the culture keeper of your school and so forth. The also very important part to me is that I want a culture of help. And what I mean by that is that if you're a lower or higher rank in my school, every now and then I give them like little mini bites of leadership. So if it's like an orange belt or a third belt in your school, purple or whatever belt it is, and there's a white belt and the white belt needs help and they're partnered up, I will clearly say, "Hey, you're the higher rank. I need you to do me a favor and hold the target and then just help this person with the punch." Okay. Or whatever thing that we're doing. That's incredibly important, that you're also kind of fostering that type of idea. And what I do then is like when we're putting away targets or whatever, I'll have, "Okay, my higher ranked students, please pick up all the targets or the obstacle course and please put them away for everybody." And they'll all help out and clean out and so forth. Or time to get the paddle targets and we're going to start kicking. Okay. And I will say, "Well, listen, I don't like the fact that the higher belts just ran and got your belts and or your targets and you ran. You guys should just stay there and start handing out the targets for the lower ranks before you guys ran out." So just they understand that type of culture of help, and that as they move up in rank, they are the ones that are kind of leading that. And then I'll tell you, you're also doing a semi interview process. Like you're looking at like which kid is instructor material, and you're also seeing which child is going to be not great instructor material. Maybe they assert themselves like a boss or they're too bossy, and you're like, "Oh, okay." This is a kid I'm going to have to put with adults or something. Just like looking at these little social interactions is part of your job. So remember, this is probably a different topic, but I just want to make sure every company has a human resource department. We do not. We are our human resource department. So you've got to always be looking for talent, and having them help the lower ranks and doing it is also a great thing as well. So that's just kind of my advice in terms of the culture. The other thing I pointed out is that I want every parent to feel like they are in a place of like martial art reverence or martial art respect. For example, I grew up Catholic and Christian, and when you go to church, there's a little bit of reverence. You're like, okay, I gotta have good thoughts and good ideas. I've been to synagogues, I've been to temples and so forth, and even though it's not my religion, I'm quiet. I don't talk in a loud voice. I'm you can just feel the religion and the culture of that. So you just want to make sure you're respectful of that. And so one of the things I do is that like there's an area of my school that when you walk past our front desk, there's absolutely no shoes. So I make all the parents take off their shoes. That's just my culture. So the parents take off their shoes, they take off their shoes with their kids and so forth. And I'll tell you the reason for that is that if I want parents to eventually help out or join my class, I have to kind of lower that barrier for them to want to like get onto the mat. So if their shoes are already off, I'll be like, sir, can you come and hold the target for me for your child? We just need to get extra reps in. Their shoes are already off. A cultural thing that we do, I think, is really important is that we have the kids bow to their parents. So at the end of every one of my classes, I'll go, Treyet, face the flags, bow to the flags before I dismiss you, or bow to the instructors, say goodbye to your instructors. They bow to the instructors. And the most important bow of the day, everybody turn around, face your mom and dad. Mom and dads, if you could please stand. In Korea, kids bow to their parents as a sign of love and respect. All right, kids, this is the most important bow of the day. Attention and Kyungnet bow. And then they bow deeply to their parents. Okay, now give your parents a big hug. That is how I end my classes. And I want the parents to feel appreciated. I want the parents to feel respected. And then I want the parents to bow. Like, I don't tell my parents to bow, but guess what? If I'm constantly bowing to them, their parents are bowing to them. Eventually, I see them and they come in and they bow too. They became indoctrinated into our culture. And I think that's important. Like, and this is not just a Taekwondo thing. Let me be clear. I don't want this to say, oh, this is such a Korean thing. All right. It's not just a Korean thing. Like, there was a show when I was a kid, and that show was called Leave It to Beaver, and it was like a black and white show that I watched in the 70s and 80s, and you watch the show, and one of the kids would come over and be like, "Hey, how you doing, Mrs. Cleaver? Nice to meet you, ma'am." Or hey ma'am, how are you? And there was like a certain level of respect in the 60s and 70s of how kids talk to adults and so forth. That was the culture, because there was a clear delineated line between seniors and juniors and moms, and now moms and dads are like, call me Jenny, call me Greg. Kids, it's not Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith or anything like that. There's a very, very easygoing way of kids getting confused on who's the leader or who's where the hierarchy is a little bit. I think Jimmy, you and I are growing up, we would never call any of our dad's friends by their first names.
Well, that goes to your point of culture, and not just Korean culture, but Asian, Japanese, Korean, other Asian cultures. We don't shake hands as a form of greeting. We bow as a form of greeting. So the level of respect is already included into all that. Also, the way that we talk to elders, our language is always it's equivalent to like in English saying sir at the end of everything. Be like, oh, hello, sir. In US, we don't say hello, sir to. We just say hello. And that's just a familiar tone and familiar that everybody just accepts. But in Korea and Japan and other Asian cultures, that we don't accept that. We don't. You can't just say hello to a elder. You got to say hello, sir, right? And you got to bow instead of shaking hands. You're bowing. So that's just the culture of that. And on the flip side, in U.S., like they don't. Parents don't want to feel old. That's their culture. They don't want to be associated as their mom or their dad. They don't want to be hearing like, "Oh, Mr. Jones." No, Mr. Jones is my dad. I don't want to be considered old. Call me Tom. And they want to feel relevant and they want to feel younger. And that's the culture of the US culture. So it's not right or wrong. It's like to your point, it's the culture. But what's refreshing is they're getting sometimes that tone of familiar instead of respect that gets blurred by these younger their kids or younger kids, and that's why they come to and learn martial arts because these their kids are learning the respect of culture which they don't enforce in their homes. So they come in and they're like, it's refreshing to see all the students bow, showing respect, the way they talk, yes ma'am, no sir, yes sir, and they want their child to be influenced by that. So when they come and learn, yes, kicking and punching and physical aspects, but also the cultural respect, that's when they're like, oh, wow, this is great. You know what? I want to be called Mr. Jones instead of Thomas. And the reason for that is because there should be a level of respect that I want my kids to learn. So that is that culture you're talking about. Absolutely, Master John.
Yeah, and like I said, it's one of these things where if you don't, I think kids get confused. So you're really teaching. And this works for me. I did Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and there's a lot of informality in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and it works for them in that culture. So I'm not saying this is the only way, but it works for us. And I think in our traditional environment, parents appreciate it. That's like, I don't know. Think about this. You go to a Japanese restaurant. No one is wearing a kimono. They're wearing t-shirts, right? And then they come in, they're like, "Hey, what type of sushi roll you want?" And you'll eat it, and it's good sushi and so forth. That's one way of looking at it. But like you go to another sushi restaurant, and they've got the kimonos, and they've got and they come in, they say hi in Japanese, and you go, "Oh man, this place is authentic." Like you can feel the authenticity, right? And
And they're not even Japanese, right?
yeah,
They're
exactly.
Americans doing.
Yeah. There are a bunch of non-Japanese back there, and an Indian guy, and a Japanese guy, and a Korean guy back there. Sounds like a bad joke, but anyway. So that's the type of feeling I want my students to feel and my customers to feel, and the culture that I'm trying to build in my classroom and so forth. And then here's another important culture. And I have black belts that have been with us 10, 20, 30 years that have been with us for a very, very long time. I was just reminded we're going to, next year, Jimmy, our organization has been around 50 years. Isn't that crazy?
What? 50 years? No way. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And so we're going to do a big celebration, and there are some people still a part of our school from back then, oddly enough. And I think my father created this, so I'm not going to take credit for it. And I think I helped develop that it amplified the culture that he created, was that if you're a black belt, you have the duty to also give back to the lower belts, just like a lower belt or a black belt helped you. And so it's just a mentality that I have where if you're a black belt, please choose one class a week just to come in to help out. Don't just come in to train for yourself. Find a training partner, find someone that you can inspire. And so if you're a smaller school, and remember, our family came here in 1975 and 76. My father didn't have a lot of students, but he did have a lot of help. And it was that culture of you help the lower belts and you help them and develop them and so forth. And my father quickly found out who his good instructors were and so forth. So you have that, you have that as part of your culture, is that you get a certain rank, have them come back to one class that is below them. So that is a culture of help. Once again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but in the culture of our school, like we really don't do private lessons. I know some people in my friends group, they charge a pretty penny for private lessons, and they make a good income doing that. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just not our culture. If someone needs extra help, I will set aside 20 minutes right after class to help them out. Or I'll have one of my senior black belts do it. Or my instructors, if they have time, they will come and do that. I have blocked out times, and I shout out to Master Mertens. This is a Master Mertens idea. We have booster classes where we have a class, we need a student that needs a little extra work on their forms. Then they'll come to a booster class and we'll give them a 20-minute private lesson, just working on their forms and getting them reignited to their goal of getting to the next belt or whatever. That is the culture. The other thing is making sure you're always reminding the students um, that what they're training for, that there's got to be a reason they're at your school, and you need to know what that is. And that's important. Is it because they need to get in better shape? They need to be more disciplined. They need to be more focused. You constantly have to remind them that they did a good job of that. And so if you're just going in there and just teaching a class and everybody's smiling and you're like, okay, bye, get out of here. Just making sure that you guys have really honed that, and that's a culture that I think is very important because that's going to help your retention.
Well, I
Yes, sir.
know a couple years back there was a friend of mine who was operating a school, and he wasn't doing very well. He had less than 100 students. I want to say less than 60. They were He had no discipline in the class, meaning at the end of the class, at, the kids just leave before the master leaves, before the instructor leaves. There was no discipline shown. And then he visited your school, he visited other schools, and then he saw at the end of the beginning of class how disciplined the students were. At the end of the class, the students couldn't leave after bowing to our nation's flag and then the master instructor. They couldn't leave until the master instructor left or the head instructor left, and then the students were able to walk in a disciplined line afterwards. And this is really impressive to parents at the end of the class coming in to pick up their kids. It's not impressive when, oh, class is over, see you guys, and all the kids are like running around like lost ants. They like That's why they brought the kids there, is to learn discipline. So they like that formality of, okay, they understand that the master has to leave first. The kids are leaving in a disciplined, orderly line, and that is a more impressive thing than than what he was doing at the time. It was just like at the end of the class, all right, see you guys next class, and that was it. So after he saw what we were doing, he changed that. He turned us not that with many other things. He changed that school around. He got up to like over 200 kids. It was a disciplined class. It was a disciplined school. He understood that mentality, and that's the culture that he instilled into that, and that culture along with other things that he implemented helped turn that school around.
So here's a kind of me. It sounds like a really small thing, but it makes a big difference here. In my neighborhood, there was this like fledgling bar, and I know this bar because I was looking to buy that building. So I was kind of like waiting for this bar to like go out of business so I can possibly move my school into the building and buy it. And it's always been under like weird ownership and so forth. It's in a hot spot. And one of the patrons of the bar was a huge fan of the show Bar Rescue. Do you remember that show, Bar Rescue?
I do remember. I haven't seen it, but I know of it. Yes.
Right. So this guy, like, I think I forgot the guy. There's a guy that comes in, he looks into a restaurant or a bar, and then he goes and fixes it and whatever. And apparently he said every bar needs a hook or something, right? So their hook became free bacon. So like you order a drink in like popcorn or peanuts or whatever is at a bar, they gave free bacon. So there's fried bacon for people just munch on as they're like drinking their drinks and so forth, right? Really unique concept. And then they changed the sign to a pig grabbing a beer and all that stuff. That little shift made a huge difference in that bar. And they didn't go out of business, so I'm like kind of pissed. And I was like, oh my God. But the place got
Not
famous
only did
because
they
of
not go out of business, you start going to that bar.
that's right, because it was free bacon. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is that this advice about culture, you're like, oh, okay, I get it, whatever. You could change one thing, and all of a sudden, all the parents are watching it, and they're like, ooh, I like this. Okay, and remember my previous talks. It's that if you run a traditional martial arts school, your student base or your target customer is usually a mom, right, between the ages of what 35 and 45, 30 to 45, somewhere in that age range. And what do they would they like to see their kids do and at 6 years old. So it's a really powerful thing, that little lineup, how they line up, how straight they stand before you start classes, We bow to the flags. We still do a 1 minute meditation. It sends chills up my spine. I see the kids like sit there still, you know, just all these little things adds up, and having the culture. I have parents come out onto my mat and help. They hold targets at certain parts of our drills. And I go, hey, I need parental volunteers to come out to help hold the targets for this next drill. We have a tournament coming up, and I partner them up with their kids. And that's slowly breaking that barrier down for them to want to absolutely take class someday in the future.
So you have, let me get this straight. You have parents who are sitting down in their regular clothes and you ask them to come into the class and participate by holding targets or whatnot?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
brilliant
So
because then they'll be like, oh hey, they'll get familiar with being on the mat. They could see themselves, imagine themselves practicing doing these kicks,
correct.
and then
Correct.
join the family class. Be like they could visualize joining the family class with their kids.
100%. 100%. That's why hey, I need extra parent help today. Do you guys mind coming out on the floor and holding for your child? Yeah, I always use this analogy, right? Um, and it's this. I'm a girl dad, so I've got daughters, and they're older now. But if my daughter did ballet, like if I said to you, Mr. Hong, and I said, Jimmy, I need you to wear these pink tights and a tutu, you'd be like, get out of here. I'm not going to wear that, right? But if I was a dance instructor, I'm like, hey, Mr. Hong, I really need your help. Your daughter needs a dance partner, and we need to get her ready for a recital. Can you help me out? You're like, yeah, absolutely. What do you need me to do? I need you to wear these tights and a tutu. All right. And be on the, oh, yeah, sure. That's what you're saying when you're asking a parent to like wear a uniform. Think
Well,
of like pink tights
I
and a
wear
tutu.
that with I wear that without being asked anyway, so that's not an issue
I
for
know.
me.
So please don't stand up. We'll probably see it right now.
I'm,
But
I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it right now, Master Cha.
we've got cameras now. So don't be careful. Be careful. Be careful what you
It's
wish
the
for.
camera. The cameras are waist up.
That's right. That's right. We can only use our imaginations right now. So anyway, my point being is that, these are just little cultural things that are, I think, super important in your academy, that you have a culture of respect, culture of friendliness, culture of people wanting to help out. And that's really important. The last thing I want to leave you with is this. I had a fundraiser last night, and one of the things that my father's black belts did is we were originally in Central City, Milwaukee, and that's where our program started. So when we moved out to the burbs, there was kind of a hole of not having a school in the central part of Milwaukee and underserved areas. So we started a nonprofit. It's been going like 10 plus years strong, and we're teaching in schools, community centers. My black belts volunteer to that, and they help out. And last night we had our annual gala, and we had over 120 people there. And at that gala, we raised over $50,000, and our students donated that, and everybody pitched in and helped out to help this nonprofit teach Taekwondo. And so what I'm saying is this culture of help went to another level, right? That, hey, our contribution to the city of Milwaukee is that we really feel like we brought martial arts to our city to make our city stronger. And because we're making our city stronger, right? We want to make sure we help our kids become stronger, that become better citizens. So what better way to do that than teach in the underserved areas of Milwaukee? So it was awesome. In fact, I'm going to post that. They just did a news story on us and so forth. But that is the culture that works for us. And that to me is an important part of the reason our school has done well in this area, is because it's not just about having a commercial school. It's also about giving back. Okay. Now, let me say this first too. You got to get to a level where your school is sustainable, that you have to be successful yourself. Like the airplane's about to crash and the oxygen masks come out. They go, wear that mask first before you help your children. So you got to make sure you have a successful school before you guys can do those other parts and other things. And you can give back in spades to your community and so forth. And so I'm not telling you to go out and do a nonprofit, not just yet. Just make sure you guys have a sustainable model that you are very successful at, that you can do that. So I think that's a very important point in terms of developing the
I
culture
would
of your
I would
school.
I would love to do a whole episode on the process and what you do for your fundraiser. I know we could talk tons about it, from setup to how to make it successful in the event. So that's definitely in the pipeline. We would love to do that, Master Chan.
Yeah, I will have our executive director who runs it, who is a very smart woman, has a law degree. I'm also very blessed to be surrounded by brilliant people, very smart people that help us. It just creates some amazing programming for our industry. So,
Awesome, Master Chan. So the answer is culture. Culture is that one powerful ingredient your martial arts schools can't afford to ignore. Let's conclude here. If you are enjoying our show, please go ahead and rate and review our podcast or YouTube channel. Starting today, our YouTube channel will be visual along with the audio only that was previously passed, whether you like it or not. Our goal is to make our show as successful as possible to reach out to all the school owners, and your review will definitely help achieve that. Have a great week, listeners, fellow martial arts school owners, Master Chan, and I look forward to our next episode.